After a month at the bottom of the world
It's been pretty harrowing, if I'm being honest.
and a 17-day solo expedition in some of the worst conditions Antarctica has seen for many years.
For the 15 days of skiing, I'm not going to lie, I think I had 7, 8, 9 days of whiteout with nothing, no contrast, no shadows, absolutely nothing other than my compass and the tips of my skis.
Richard Parkes is back home.
I was kind of nervous that Fred might forget who his dad was, but within a few seconds of walking in the house, he had his arms out and he sort of ran over to me and everyone in the room was crying.
This is his story, in his own words.
To be faster than I was in 2014 in the worst conditions they've had in Antarctica for a very, very long time, I'm really proud of that.
This is Richard Parkes, Antarctica.
It's always amazing to come home.
Hello, I'm Vicki Blight, and this is the podcast following Richard Parkes' attempt to ski from the Antarctic coast to the South Pole, solo, unassisted and unsupported as fast as humanly possible. It was an expedition ultimately defeated by the weather after 492 kilometres, 306 miles. But I'm delighted to say Richard is back home, he's safe, he's well, and he's sitting opposite me right now. How does it feel to be back? First question.
Kind of bizarre, but awesome.
And we're actually talking, face to face, not
wild.
over a sat phone. You're not in your tent. You're not kind of bundled up with all your rations and everything. You're sat back, you're chilled, you got a cup of coffee. It's must be so different to be back in Wales.
Oh yeah, it's being in my jeans with a coffee without having to, melt snow and melt ice and. But yeah, all the home comforts that we kind of take for granted, actually, that, expeditions like this just refocus my mind to be grateful for the little things. So no, it's awesome to be home. Thanks.
Oh, good. When did you arrive back? And yeah, how have you spent those first few days?
Just taking the time to reintegrate slowly. It's been really, really amazing to spend time with Joe and Fred. It's insane how much he's developed in the 2 months or so that I've been away. It was really cool because I was kind of nervous that he might forget who his dad was. And I know, but when I arrived home, within a few seconds of walking in the house, he had his arms out and he sort of ran over to me and everyone in the room was crying. It was, he was like, what's going on? What's all the fuss? But it was amazing. It's been really cool actually to come back and it puts everything into perspective, right? I mean, I've had a really tough couple of months. It's been pretty harrowing, if I'm being honest, physically and mentally. But you come home to that, and it all makes sense, right? And yeah, so been eating lots and sleeping lots. It's I kind of feel like I've got narcolepsy, or I've turned into like my grandpa used to be, where if you're not, the second you stop talking to him, he falls asleep.
Nodding off in the chair.
Exactly, yeah. But it is great to be back in Wales. It's always amazing to come home.
So the last time we heard from you, you just decided to end the expedition and you were waiting for the plane to pick you up. Talk us through what happened over those next few days.
Oh, oof. Well, it's kind of a mind-blowing feat of logistics, really. In some ways, it was a really difficult decision to abort the expedition. In other ways, the decision was made for me. But once the decision was made regardless, it was a case of waiting for ALE, the logistics provider, to arrange a pickup. It turns out where I was in Antarctica, the terrain and the conditions were safe to land the Twin Otter, that was the first start. So I didn't have to move. And then it was just waiting for an opportunity when they had a plane in the area to put the plane down and pick me up. I didn't have to wait long, a few days. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. I've waited longer for a taxi in Cardiff, right? And it's wild, I've been on my own for so long, and then all of a sudden you hear this buzzing sound or this noise, and you're looking around the sky to find the dot of the Twin Otter, and you finally find it, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they circle you a couple of times, and then they just land the plane next to you. And I'm not exaggerating; it's like 100 yards from the tent. Like literally 50 yards from the tent, and yeah, pack up real quick, because obviously I've got to leave the tent pitched so they can see it, the red tent in the snow. Pack up really quickly, say hi to the pilots, chuck the pulk on the plane and strap in and fly off. The great thing about Union Glacier actually is it's kind of like a halfway point between coming home and the expedition. So you're around people that kind of, well, that understand and that kind of get it. And it's a really nice transition. Obviously the food is great and you're back in relative comfort, but it's kind of an important part of the transition and the reintegration. I wasn't able to stay there for that long because there was an Aleutian flight planned, a cargo flight for the next couple of days. And, the weather's been so rubbish this year and so changeable that actually it was get a guaranteed flight on that day or potentially wait weeks. You just don't know when the next one is. So within, I don't exaggerate, I can't really remember, but within like 3 or 4 days of leaving the expedition, I'm sat in my hotel room in Punta Arenas, kind of, looking at the shower, looking at my kit everywhere, like bags everywhere. Just thinking, what do I do now? Like, where do I start? It really is kind of like I don't know how to say this without swearing. It's kind of like, a head fudge, if you know what I mean. It really, because it's not a normal process to come back. I find it much easier going out there. Anyway, you dig in, you pull yourself together and sort my kit out, which took a couple of days. Arrange for the freight to be sent home and then sit on the phone I sat on the phone for what seemed like days trying to sort my flight out with BA back home, but managed to get a flight home. And next thing you know, I'm here with my coffee talking to you, which is awesome. It's an amazing feat of logistics, really. But I'll be honest, I still haven't had the opportunity to really process everything. It kind of happened in a wonderful way really quickly, but equally, it does take time to really reflect and process all these things.
Yeah, your feet haven't really touched the ground, to be fair. It's a really quick turnaround. What was the most exciting thing about being off the ice? And what was the first thing you had to eat? What was the first thing you had to drink?
So the first thing I had was a beer.
Nice.
It is nice. And I'm not a big drinker, but actually, like a cold can of fizzy lager. I don't even know the brand. It's some Chilean brand or something. But that was really nice, actually. Good coffee as well. That was really cool. Like proper coffee at the cafetiere. I love my coffee. So that was really nice. And the food I had, actually, it just turns out that the day that I arrived back at Union Glacier, they were serving like big sort of stir-fry veggies. And actually there was salmon, it was fish. So after eating dehydrated food for, I don't know, however long I was, to have proper vegetables and actually fish was really lush. Typical fashion, I overate and without being too crude, it went straight through me. I'll be really honest. I feel like actually my digestive system is only just really coming back. But actually to eat proper vegetables was amazing. I mean, that's kind of, as a younger man, I wouldn't have thought that actually the thing that I looked forward to most or enjoyed the most was the veggies, but actually that was really cool. Getting a shower was amazing. Amazing the crap that came off me. Because I didn't have a change of clothes. On longer expeditions, I would probably take a snow shower, which is, when the weather's good, get outside, get naked, and you use the snow to scrub yourself. And I've done that many times, but this expedition, I didn't have the time. I didn't have the time or the weather to do that. So, I'd been in the same pants, same clothes for 3 weeks or so. So having a shower was really nice.
We want to really understand the expedition through your eyes. But before we do that, let's hear from two people who have pretty much skied every kilometre of this expedition with you back home in Newport. Your mum, Lee, your dad, Derek, and a special appearance from Rusty the dog.
The last 3 weeks have been difficult at times. We had 2 or 3 conversations, but we also had 2 or 3 sat phone messages per day. It was one of the massive improvements on past projects that we were able to communicate with him daily, hourly if we wanted to. We could pinpoint where his position was, and we could see where he was, and that was very comforting. We took a lot of cold comfort from that. The only worry about it was Richard can talk, and talking on a sat phone is expensive, and the bills run up and up and up.
I think the delay in getting to Union Glacier because of the weather conditions was a little bit unsettling. It was obvious that the weather was deteriorating and not really improving. The conditions were horrendous. That's the only word. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what he was having to undergo, having to ski knee-deep in snow. I find that hard to comprehend. I mean, just walking in deep snow, I know what it's like, spending a lot of time in America. In deep snow, you can hardly lift your foot, let alone skis. So I know that was very demanding.
Well, then when you consider that his skis were actually indenting into the snow, and the pulp was falling almost into the indentations that the skis had made, you can't pull a pulp through deep snow. It's not designed for it.
The only thing could have stopped him was the weather. We've always said that, wasn't it?
I'm confident that under normal conditions that Richard would have been very near the record, if not beaten the record.
So your mum and dad, we'll hear more from them later on. But let's talk about a couple of the things that they raised there. Starting with, you're already laughing, starting with the communication. You know, how did you communicate with home and obviously running up those massive bills that your dad's very concerned about?
That's really funny. That's hilarious. Well, I didn't think I communicated that much at all. I think I spoke to Dad maybe 2 or 3 times in the expedition. Well, if ever I go back again, I'll know now. I'll speak less. So funny. Yeah, Dad's worried about the phone bill. Amazing. You know, and now Mum's obviously a polar expert as well, having skied in knee-deep snow. No, it's amazing. I mean, they're my heroes, right? And you know, along with Joe and Fred, they're my world. So no, it's really cool to hear them. Anyway, so I had, like Dad said, for my first Antarctic expedition, I've been able to have real-time tracking, which actually it's been kind of revolutionary for my family, having that peace of mind and that comfort. Because from my point of view, it takes the pressure off me to communicate. One of the biggest challenges out there actually is managing that for me, because at times it's wonderful to have contact with back home, but then equally at times it can be really catastrophic. The reason why I limited my phone calls on this expedition, and I really did, was every time I spoke to either Joe, Mum or Dad, or even you, Vic, it took me an hour to compose myself after. And what I mean by that is, you know, I'd have 5-10 minutes where I'd have to fight the tears back. Then I'd have to wrestle with, why am I here? What am I doing here? Why aren't I back home? And then pull myself together and then, you know, get myself ready for 15 hours of skiing, you know. So the emotional cost of communicating, it's mega. I know that's kind of selfish, so that's why the balance was helping everyone back here have comfort and peace of mind, but equally making sure that I do what's right for my performance as well.
How easy or difficult was it for you to make those calls, particularly when you hit the really tough days, the really dark days, and when things weren't going to plan?
Savage. It was savage to do that. And then, having learnt from previous expeditions, actually, that's kind of the time to avoid phoning home. We had quite a strict protocol. It sounds really formal, forgive me, but it is a protocol. You know, it was a text every morning and every night. Mum and Dad, Joe. And that was just peace of mind. I'm well, I'm fit, I'm safe. Not in those words, but that was the purpose of the text. And then originally we spoke about a conversation every 3rd day. That didn't even materialise because the pressure that I was under out there, the physical strain, the hours skiing, and the emotional and mental strain actually meant that we pared those conversations right back. I was right at the limit out there. That's why I say that the expedition was harrowing, because it was like every single night I would get in the tent, I would be physically in pain, like just general pain. You know, my legs sore, shoulder sore, neck, back, like just everything painful. Mentally, I would just be frazzled from staring at a compass for 15 hours or longer, and emotionally just, you know, just gutted, because from day one I knew that it was going to be a monumental challenge to achieve what we set out. And managing that emotion, you know, managing the part of my brain telling me I'm never going to do this, to the other part of my brain being defiant and saying I'm going to do this, I can do this. And so actually I was very rarely, in fact, I was probably never in a space to really have a proper conversation And I've learnt that from previous expeditions. The times when you phone home and you're high and you're low, everyone back home kind of rides that wave with you, and that's not really fair on them.
Remind us what your strategy was before you saw the reality of the weather, and then at what point did you throw it out the window and just think, I've just got to get through it. I've just got to push.
Oh, well, the strategy started to evolve or unravel, whichever way you want to look at it, from the moment I landed in Punta.
So just to qualify there, and when you say Punta, you're talking about Punta Arenas in Chile.
Yeah, it's the last stopping point before you fly onto Antarctica at the southernmost tip of Chile. So there were a number of decisions that I had to make from very early days, and the first one was to push my flight from Punta to Union Glacier back. So I had an extra week, or a week, roughly an extra week in Punta Arenas. When I got to Union Glacier, it became really clear that the weather wasn't going to improve anytime soon. So I had more time at Union Glacier than I'd planned, and actually, that wasn't too bad. I ended up skiing half marathons and sometimes longer daily just to keep my training up to speed. And then, when I got to Hercules Inlet, I'd had enough food for 5-6 days at Hercules Inlet to, test the equipment and ski and train, in and around Hercules. The weather forecast meant very quickly I had to change that strategy, and I ended up starting about 2 or 3 days before I'd planned to start the expedition. And actually that was probably the first really impactful blow, and could have been crippling if I'm being honest. That first day out of Hercules was just, it was like being hit by a freight train. Emotionally, at times I was having to take my skis off to get traction, sinking into the snow, like I said, into my, to halfway my shins, my knees, dragging the sled, which was fully laden at this point, up out of Hercules. And it took me 19 hours to cover 33 kilometers, which was, in context, that's a massive day as in distance wise, but, I wasn't planning on expending that kind of energy expenditure that early. And for the first 5 days of the expedition, 4 of those, I didn't see a horizon, didn't see a shadow, didn't see anything other than a white room. 15 hours a day, staring at my compass. I was still pulling really big distances, relatively big distances. At day 6, I was already a day ahead of my British record and ahead of my previous expedition. So from very early on, my strategy had to flex day in and day out, and it was just a case of reducing my hours of sleep, basically emptying the tank to try and stay in touching distance of the record. And my goal at that point was to hang in as long as I could and hope that the weather conditions above the ground changed, and also the snow conditions on the ground changed, and just have confidence in my training and my conditioning to hope that when they did change, I would be able to maintain it and pull bigger days. But the reality was the conditions never changed, and I ended up just burying myself and emptying the tank completely.
At what point did you face the fact that the record had gone and that wasn't going to be the focus point of this expedition anymore?
I don't know, is the honest truth. I think in my heart of hearts, my subconscious was wrestling that from the time I arrived in Punta Arenas, if I'm being really honest. But I was kind of in denial, or certainly, not giving it any conscious thought. It's not a regret. I think the only thing, or the thing I've been wrestling with most since coming off the ice, is in a normal season, or certainly the other 3 seasons I've been down there, moving fast and getting to the pole were complementary goals. This season, this freak season, they were conflicting goals. And I realised that quite late. I confronted that quite late. And I'm still kind of processing that. In previous expeditions and in life, we put a lot of effort into de-risking situations and having plan Bs, plan Cs, and very rarely in life do we go all in. And I really mean all in, because it's kind of exposing and it's scary and there's no safety net, right? On this expedition, I went all in, and that meant I was either going to get there and break the record, or I was not going to get there. And that was always the plan, don't get me wrong, but the weather conditions meant that, getting there slowly kind of fell off the table. So it's really hard to say at what point that became a reality to me. At day 9, day 10, I was still in touching distance of the record. I think to all our amazements, even myself, really. Because I remember getting some stats through from Nick, and I couldn't believe at that point that I was a day faster than my British record of 2014, which is still the second fastest in history. I couldn't believe I was a day ahead of it in, conditions considerably worse than 2014. And I was still only, I think, a day or a day and a half behind Christian. So at day 10, I was still in it and still really defiant. I think for me, it probably would have been around day 15, day 14. I physically was really empty at that point. I was showing real signs of strain, and I hit the worst conditions of the route. Just before Thiels, around halfway, around like 460 kilometres into it, I hit really soft snow again, and I just blew up. If I was a car, you can imagine all the needles went to the red, all the lights started flashing, smoke coming out from under the bonnet, and that was like physically and mentally, and that's when I couldn't move fast enough to generate the body heat, and I had early signs of a cold foot, and that's when I pitched the tent, and I think I had to really confront the reality that this wasn't going to be the year. I tried to ski the next day, but, a day's rest isn't really going to touch the sides in that situation. And, I realised as soon as you stop, you kind of, everything catches up to you, and I was wrecked. It took me half hour to pack the tent away, which is, oh my gosh, that's just unheard of. And then I'd skied for an hour or two, and I was just empty. And I remember falling, it would have been around minus like 29 wind chill, roughly. It was around just under minus 20. And in one of my breaks, I was sat on the edge of my pulk, and for a split second or for a few minutes, I just fell asleep, and that's really dangerous, right? Like that's not good. At that point, I dipped the wrong side of the safety line. I was skirting it, but I dipped the wrong side, and I think that's when I realised that that I probably had to abort.
Talk us through that cold injury. At that point, you weren't moving fast enough to generate enough heat. You obviously started to realise you've lost some sensation in the left foot. And I guess you had to make the decision, right, I've got to speak to a medical professional.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure different people have different opinions, but I don't see, cold injuries or frostbite as a badge of honour. It's really important to me that I come back with all my fingers and my toes. There's much more life beyond expeditions. So as soon as I noticed the warning signs, and I have had frostbite before, I needed to address it. And actually, there was a chance that, had I caught it early enough, there was a chance that a couple of days rest, would have allowed it to settle and allowed my body to work itself out. And maybe there was an option to continue. The reality was that I was too weak at that point to really recover. And as I've learned now, a couple of days isn't going to really touch the sides. But yeah, so I'd lost a little bit of sensation in my left foot. Nothing major. I guess, it would be a bit like having pins and needles in your toe and the ball of your foot. I'm in normal shoes now, and it's kind of almost back to normal. Not quite, but it's almost back to normal. But from experience, these things deteriorate really quickly. And had I been 5 or 6 days away from the pole, I might have made a different decision, but I still had half the expedition to go.
Well, there were so many things that you achieved across those days. So how do you reflect on your own personal achievements and the greater achievements of Team Quest now, a few weeks on?
I'm now just coming up to speed with all the messages on Twitter, and for example, the blogs that some of the students wrote and what the partners have said, and it's just insane, because obviously I'm in this little bubble, my own world out there, and when you come back and you realise what's been going on, it's just awesome. And we've still got a lot to do this year, and I'm really excited actually already just to get back in and just to really unpick what happened and to really share the learning and, to complete that part of the project. With regards to what I did out there, I'm really proud of my performance. There was 7 solo expeditions on the ice this year, 5 aborted, including myself. And, I was the only expedition to come anywhere close to world record pace. And to be faster than I was in 2014 in, well, arguably the worst conditions they've had in Antarctica for a very, very long time. I'm really proud of that.
So let's talk about Team Quest then. This group of partners, stakeholders and individuals that you've gathered together to inspire young people and business leaders as well. Team GB Winter Olympian Mika Moore is a proud member of Team Quest, and she's been catching up with some of those involved to find out what they've been up to and what's next.
Yeah. So if you just tell me what you've been doing today, what's been going on here.
Okay, sure.
In the autumn of last year, 15 broadcast students at Cardiff Metropolitan University, including me, began documenting preparations for Richard's expedition in Antarctica.
So welcome to Come to the Bakery.
Oh, wow.
Cardiff Met was one of Team Quest's title partners, and it was our job to capture some of the work that students across campus were doing to prepare him for the journey.
From the very start of this whole project, Richard made every one of the students feel like part of his team.
This is the head of the Sports Broadcasting MSc programme, Joe Towns. He signs off my assignments, so be nice.
He made them sign NDAs and explained to them the importance of confidentiality on a project like this. Then he brainstormed various ideas, he offered feedback as they went along, he set them a delivery deadline, and eventually a few of the students' videos were published on Richard's official Instagram feed, which was such a buzz for us.
Joe's right. It was amazing and a real pleasure to work with someone as inspiring as Richard.
Usually with university assessments, it's really hard to recreate a real-world situation. But Richard's brief gave us the ultimate learning opportunity.
It was also a learning opportunity for the students in the Art and Design department who were given a very specific task to design a better cover, or canopy as it's also known, for Richard's sled than the one he'd had for his previous expedition. Daniel Siegel was one of those students.
The canopy he had was so generic that it wasn't really tight or fitted to his sled. And that just led to it almost being like a flag or a little parachute that he almost had to pull along. So mentally, it was really draining because of the noise that he constantly heard. But it also felt like that he was exerting more energy.
Never once to shy away from a challenge, Daniel and the team headed to the workshop, which is kind of like a grungier version of Q's laboratory in a James Bond film, to make a canopy that fit the Pulk.
Almost like a bespoke suit just tailored for his gear, because he gave us a description as well as some dimensions of most of his gear and how his sled would be loaded. And then from that, we made a mock-up. And then from there, we actually then tailored the ripstop to then fully form around his gear rather than having any excess material.
Ambition, teamwork and excellence are all things that are really important to JLL.
This is Cara Keogh from global real estate services provider JLL.
And one of the things that we've talked a lot with Rich about is that no matter how big or small the ambition is, it's always a team of people with different skills and experiences that help you along your way. So the thing that was really inspiring for us was a lot of the work that he's done with Cardiff Met. So I think that was for us the thing that sort of clinched the deal.
And the deal she's talking about is coming on board as a title partner for Team Quest. There are 4 in total, along with 5 senior partners and many more stakeholders across multiple sectors, all motivated in some way by Richard's story.
He's a real human being, just like everyone else, and we all come up against things that are pretty hard to kind of, maybe not on the same scale, but pretty hard to accomplish. And I think it's understanding that, for him, the team behind him is so important. I think that's a great learning for all of us.
Back in Cardiff, pupils from Mount Stuart Primary School had an equally important role to perform for Richard's expedition. Design the flask that he would be drinking out of every hour, with messages of support. Yakeen from Year 6 explains more.
What our aim was for this flask is just not only to be amazing and colourful, for it to bring him up, and when he's kind of down and kind of defeated, he can just look at this flask and remember all the people that are supporting him and all the people that care and all the people that are behind him.
Marcia Briscombe is a teaching assistant at Mount Stuart Primary.
He's just sort of shown our children that anything is possible. No matter what your academic level is, you're all capable of something and achieving some sort of goals.
He walked 23 miles in snow. Like, 23 miles alone is really hard, but he walked it in snow, and like whilst his sled was going underneath the snow, so he was like pulling like twice the weight, and it felt like he was pulling a sofa, and like it's so heavy, and to have like that ability to keep on going, keep on walking, yeah, that's phenomenal.
Giving people a sense of how Richard coped with this season's challenging weather will be a major focus for a new Antarctica exhibition at Cardiff's Science Discovery Centre Techniquest, another of Richard's title partners. Claire James is head of partnerships there.
We've been talking about this and how we're going to communicate this to people, and we've had some really exciting ideas about how we would communicate this in an exhibit. Something really, really quite immersive and interactive that possibly involves the visitor trying to wade through that sort of depth of snow, carrying the same sort of weight that Richard was trying to pull.
The exhibition is also likely to feature this guy.
Hi, Richard.
This is Now, Cardiff Met's data-gathering robot who was due to meet Richard at the pole.
Don't worry, I'm an experienced adventurer and will take good care of you.
Richard's partners are looking to use the learnings from his latest expedition to help inspire people within their organisations. This is Cecilia Fritz, who is the head of HR and training at another title partner, Sony UK Technology Centre.
Obstacles will happen, and they will happen in business as well as when you do these kind of expeditions, but also in personal lives. And I think that teaches us as a business that these will happen. You can prepare all you can prepare, but sometimes they will still happen. And I think he's just setting an incredible example, and I'm confident that he will be able to sort of inspire people going forward.
Joe Towns from Cardiff Met again.
He's also got so much passion for what he's doing, it's infectious. In fact, that might be the greatest thing the students could learn from Rich, is to have that incredible passion for whatever they're doing.
And I'll leave the final few words of encouragement to Kyrie and Nayal from Mount Stewart Primary School.
Don't beat yourself up because you never made it. It was really hard. I think it would be really hard for Hulk to do that. So, and we're proud of you. Yeah, we were proud.
Cardiff Met sports broadcasting student Mika Moore reporting there. So, emotions aside for the minute, firstly, do you think that the Hulk could have survived those conditions? Kyrie didn't seem to think so.
Actually, he's heavier. No, he would have sunk further into the snow. Oh, wow. Sorry, Vic. I'm kind of blown away, actually. It's really incredible hearing everyone reflect and hearing everyone's opinion of what went on out there. It's really awesome. I hope I'm going to stop crying at some point. It feels like I've been crying for the last month.
Oh. but hearing such young children, at primary school, I'm really understanding what you've been through, and hearing it in their words as well, their interpretation of it. I think when I heard that clip, that's the bit that got me actually. That is going to stay with them. They're going to be talking about that from years to come. The time that Richard Parkes came to our school and the time that we designed his flasks, and they're just so proud to be a part of it. And surely that's what Team Quest is all about.
Absolutely. Fair play. They've done their homework. They've been following me. They've listened to the podcasts. They've read the blogs. And, I remember hearing at a talk a quote, "You can't be what you can't see." And, hopefully that, whatever comes out of this, they have the confidence and, I guess, the mentality to follow their dreams and to work hard and to never be afraid of failing, I guess. And yeah, that's really humbling.
You're really emotional, and I know you're finding it hard, but so let's talk about tech stuff. Let's talk about the canopy that the students designed for the Polk. Did it work?
Yeah, it was amazing. In fact, every bit of kit that was developed by the students and by the young students as well at Mount Stewart Primary School was just worked. The Polk canopy performed better than I could have expected. The zip design was really functional. I was able to open it with one hand really quickly, get at stuff really quickly. It fitted. It was really robust. Yeah, I mean, actually, one of the things I plan to do is to ask the guys to make me another one.
Wow.
I'm not trying to hint anything. I haven't even considered. Well, it's a lie, actually. I'm nowhere near considering going back, but I just think it's such a great product. I would really like the opportunity to have that before they leave. The flasks as well. The messages were believed to achieve. That's the school's motto, and also the one flask that I used, like hourly, had never give up on it, and it was really powerful because I'll be really honest. I wrestled that every second of every day. The why and the can I do it, and this is so unfair, and all those things that I guess we all battle on a day-to-day stuff. They're kind of amplified out there, and every hour I'd have, or every hour and 15 minutes I'd have a drink, and I'd see never give up on the flask, and actually that was kind of mega.
Yeah, it must have cheered you up as well to see the students' work and the effort they put in. And I know that their teaching assistant was worried that she hadn't put enough lacquer on. She was worried that the flasks weren't going to survive. But
well, that's true. I did have to spray them a few more times in Punta. This is true. But hey, that's part of the team, I was grateful actually for the lacquer because it helped me bond the sponsors' logos on my Polk as well. So it all worked out really well. I'll be honest, Vic, it wasn't a case of cheering me up because I'll be honest that, none of this expedition was fun. And that kind of upsets me a bit. It's a real privilege to be in Antarctica. I know this is my 4th time on the continent, but it's magical. It's wonderful. And it's a place unlike anything else on the planet. That connection with nature, the connection with our planet, the connection with Mother Nature, the introspection, everything. It's such a privilege to be there. And I never take it for granted. But regardless of how hard it is, there's always something magical, or I'd always experienced something magical, and on this trip it was horrific. Like there was no part of the expedition, I don't mean the time in Union Glacier and the pre and the post, there's amazing humans down there and it is wonderful to see people and see the team again, but during the expedition I can't think of anything that was fun. It was horrific. Like every second was brutal, and the flask, it wasn't about making me feel better, it was actually just reminding me that this wasn't about me, this was about something bigger, and there was a bigger purpose to this project, and that never give up and that connection with the wider team, that really pulled me through, almost hourly. It pulled me through every day, and that was really powerful to me.
And I guess if all of your mental and physical energy is going on just surviving, being in the hole and at the extreme that you were at, you don't have anything left for enjoyment or fun or the lighter side of life, really, because every percentage of your body and being is going into just surviving those conditions.
Yeah, that's true. I've always really challenged myself actually to be in the moment and to try and see the wonder in the world. I don't want to get too heavy, but some of the places I've climbed and like I said, we're talking about Antarctica, but this is a magical place, and I know from previous expeditions I've experienced the snow reflecting and refracting the light in such a way that it looks like I'm kind of skiing on a bed of diamonds, and you get these wonderful like rainbow features around the sun that look like a clock dial. But I didn't get any of that. For the 15 days of skiing, I'm not going to lie, I think I had 7, 8, 9 days of whiteout with nothing, no contrast, no shadows, absolutely nothing other than my compass and the tips of my skis. I had a few good days, but even on the good days, the conditions wise, above the ground, I'm in, my skis are sinking up to my ankles in snow, and it's like a grind, and it's just brutal. And every second I know that I'm slipping further behind the record, and I'm just trying to hold on with my fingertips, just in the hope that at some point the conditions break. And all the while I'm conscious that I'm part of something bigger, so I don't want to let people down and let the team down. And you've got the public pressure of going there and saying I'm going to break this record, or I'm trying to break this record, and there's everything, and actually it was really tough this time. Whereas previously I have experienced the wonder. I think the nature of this expedition made it really tough.
So it's clear that I don't need to ask you about what you're most proud of so far, because you're so emotional, and you've spoken about it throughout this interview. But what I do want to ask you is how you intend to use the learnings from the expedition going forward.
Different people will take different things from the expedition. That's the development and the actual execution of it. And I'm really proud of the diversity of the partners and the people in Team Quest, and you know what the guys at JLL will take from this and the guys at Sony will take from this will be different to what the students at Cardiff Met have already taken from it, and the younger team members will take something completely different again. So I'm really looking forward to actually spending time with my partners and the people involved in Team Quest over the next few weeks and few months to really unpick what went on, to look at the lessons learned and to tailor those lessons specifically to those organisations. The three things I think that really stick out to me, and like I said, different people will take different things from it, but I think I've been really proud of, and it's been a really important part of my ability to go to the depths that I went to and to deliver what I did out there is the greater purpose of Team Quest. I think the second thing is understanding what we can control and what we can't control. We live in a really, really dynamic world. I mean, it only took me a couple of hours to realise how crazy it is when I turned my Guardian app on and you see what's going on in the world, right? And actually, I think coming to terms with not being able to control our environment is, I think, quite an important lesson. And finally, I mentioned it before, but very rarely do we really commit to something and go all in, because it's scary and it makes you really vulnerable. And for me, certainly that is probably the scariest thing I could think of. Me personally, vulnerability. And actually, it doesn't always work out. And the decision to go all in and know that actually either we're going to be successful or we're going to have to pick the pieces of it up and rebuild ourselves and start again. Quite often in life, we choose not to do that. And, we moderate what we do and we have safety nets and plan Bs. And that's been a really, really, I'm still in that journey. I'd be honest, I haven't picked the pieces up yet.
And I can visibly see you're still in that journey, and that's the thing that's going to take weeks, months. It's just going to take time. It's part of your story now, and it's how you absorb that and process it and deal with it and then communicate it. And I just think you're doing remarkably well, considering we're talking days since you've returned home, and I think that's testament to your mental strength. You've inspired so many people. We've had wonderful messages. People have been getting involved in the Team Quest community and enjoying the podcast and enjoying your updates and Insta stories and that kind of thing. I want to read a few of them now to you and embarrass you. Yeah, you're going to be like proper cringe. Firstly, let's start with Monica. She says this podcast series has been one of the most inspirational things I've ever listened to. I have learned so much from how Richard prepared for and pushed through on this expedition. It has helped me see how I can step up and tackle bigger challenges in my own life. I mean, that's something you spoke about before you left Chile, is the fact that you wanted to, in this dynamic world, inspire people's own personal adventure mindset. And no matter how big or small the challenge is, you've done it right there. You've done it.
Okay, I'm trying not to cry again now. Flipping egg. Go easy on me. All right.
I'll read another one. Alan says, Richard Parks. It's very, very polite. You continue.
I'm in trouble when somebody uses my full name.
Richard Parks.
Yeah.
You continue to be an inspiration, even in making the difficult decision at the right time. Awesome effort again, and I'm sure the learners back home will continue to benefit. Now get yourself home safely to your lovely family. Now he mentions there making the difficult decision at the right time, and that's something. When I spoke to Prof Nick, OBE, once you decided to stop, and that was one of the big things that she kept sort of drawing our attention to, was the fact that she's so proud that even in that most difficult situation, you were on your own and you were still making the right calls, you were still making the right decisions, and that was a lot of the preparation you did with her, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think decision making with less than perfect information and dynamic information, I mean that's kind of a a core part of performing in these expeditions, but you can only do that when you have the capacity to process information. And my physical conditioning plays a huge part in my my mental conditioning and operating skill, and actually that, yeah, I'm proud of that. It's silly, I kind of take that for granted because that's, I'm pretty good at this now. But yeah, I guess when other people say it, it kind of draws attention to it.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to go back to your mum and dad, Lee and Derek, to get a few more reflections.
He should take some comfort that he's achieved what he has. 13, 14 days out there in these conditions, that takes some doing. That's a special sort of person to have accomplished that.
I'm also reasonably confident that this is not the end of the story for Richard.
We are holding our breath as to see where it's going to go, where he's going to go from here, because Richard doesn't like to leave things unfinished.
He can relax, I think, for a couple of months and then debrief and learn from this project, and then make a conscious decision if he's going to attempt it again.
So once he's had time to reflect, get his mind sorted, we will all see where he goes from here. And I'm open for bets.
So your parents there, Derek and Lee, and Rusty the dog, who we can hear barking in the background. We've got a yapping dog next door. We've got drilling. It's all going on. You are well and truly back home. Your mum's running a book, it sounds. And I mentioned the messages, one from Gary here saying, "You're such an inspiration. Won't be long till you're back in civilization and planning your next adventure. Keep up the good work, dude. Can't wait to see what your next challenge is." The two people that know you best think you're going to do it again, so...
It's way too soon for me to really process that, if I'm being honest. I'd never say never. I'm going to be really honest and say that actually, since coming home, trying to keep up with Fred around the house, that has proved as challenging as the brutality of Antarctica. I mean, he's just started walking. He started walking whilst I was away. And our world is very small now. I mean, one of the first days I was home, he was in the bedroom playing on the floor, and I was putting my socks and jeans on, and I turn away for however long it takes to put socks and jeans on, and I look around, and he's managed to crawl into the bathroom, and he's eating toilet paper on the floor, and
wow.
I'm like, oh my God, this is wild.
You have a baby and a puppy all in one, rolled into one.
Yeah, no, he's insane. I mean, Mum's also right. It's going to take me a few months, I think, to really process this, and I really want to enjoy time at home, and just be present, be in the moment. Obviously, I've got friends and family that I haven't seen over Christmas, so I'm looking forward to like a second Christmas, a February or March Christmas. I've got some really exciting things in the pipeline. I never want to sit still. I've got some stuff here in Wales which I'm really excited about. I've got some cycling projects and races which I'm really excited about, and I certainly wouldn't rule going back to Antarctica out, but I'd be lying if I said I've given it major thought, proper thought. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to eating bacon baps and running around Butte Park with Fred.
Running after Fred.
Yeah, true. Yeah, chasing him around. Yeah.
You've said you're not going to think about it right now, and I don't want to push you too much, but I do want to ask, what would be the things that you would consider before making a final decision on Antarctica and whether you'd return?
My family. I'd have to consider funding it, and I'd have to really consider what we would learn, what we would take from that, because the greater purpose of the projects is really important to me. These things cost money, and we have to justify that spend, right? I wouldn't go back there just for vanity reasons, but I would go back there if we honestly felt that we could add value from that. So those are the kind of things I would think of. Right now I'm really proud of what I've done out there. I look back as the first Welshman to ski solo and then support it to the South Pole, the fastest Brit. It's still Christian and I under 30 days, and no one's come close to that. Well, other than me for 15 days this time round. So I'm really proud of what I've done in Antarctica. I still love her. we're still really good friends. Even
that was going to be my next question, because you described her at the beginning of the series as brutal and beautiful, and
did I can't remember that.
You
okay,
do, and you've spoken about the snow and the diamonds and the clock face on the sun. But it's is she still a great love to you after that incredible hole she put you through?
In a nutshell, yes. She wasn't at her best this year, but we all have bad days, right? I'm not one to judge. It's still an incredible privilege to experience that continent, and it's my choice to do what I did this year, and I'm really proud of what's come out of the project. So yeah, we're still friends.
And just not quite busy mates right now, but maybe that'll come back in a few months' time.
Yeah, we've just had a spat. We'll have a couple of weeks, apart, and then
have a bit of a break. Send a text to see how the land lies.
Yeah.
And Richard Parkes, it is your Antarctica, and it's been fantastic getting to know it through your eyes, and what an incredible story to tell towards the end of 2018 and start the new year on such an adventure mindset. So thank you from me.
Oh, thank you, Vicky. You're making me blush here. But actually, it's me that owes the thanks to you for sharing the story, and the team at Bengo and everyone that's contributed to the podcast. Like everything in life, it's better for the collective, and so many people have given up their time and opened up as well. And for me to hear it now I'm back, it really is humbling, actually. It's been really emotional, so thank you guys too.
Thanks for listening and for following Richard's incredible journey in Antarctica. I'm Vicki Blight. Richard Parkes' Antarctica is a Bengo Media production for Team Quest.